anyone who's ever heard of visual novels definitely knows what Steins Gate is. Even for those who have never touched a VN, there's a good chance they've heard of its popular anime adaptation. After all, it is one of the highest rated, most popular titles the medium has, a mashup of sci-fi, comedy, romance, and thriller, all built around time travel. But what I never suspected is that by the end, I would have a pretty hot take about Steins Gate that a fair amount of people might disagree with me. Hi, my name is August, and this is my first time coverage of the Steins Gate visual novel, the journey of one mad scientist's desperate search to find Steins Gate. Enter Okabe Rintaro, self-proclaimed Chunibyo oddball, aka alias no one uses, Hoing Kyoma. Like with all insane scientists, in his eyes anyway, he is committed to creating neat new gadgets to plunge the world into chaos, only for he and his friends to accidentally discover a method of time travel through sending text messages through a modified microwave. Not exactly the most elaborate device, but hey, it works, apparently. They begin to experiment, seeing how far they can go, unaware that their actions would have severe consequences. A mad scientist, yes, but damn, his calculations are so bad, he arrived at the ultimate 10 on the around find out graph. I'm a fan of Okabe, our bombastic Chunibyo leader of the lab. Super pompous and grandiose in his behavior, almost to an annoying extent even, but he's never outright a pain to listen to. A fair amount of banter is dedicated to almost everyone dismissing his outlandish remarks. Praise to Kurisu for somehow not going insane from arguing with the man. And yet, despite his crazy ramblings, all of them are still willing to go along with his antics regardless. Yeah, sure, he can be forceful at times, but past his personality full of delusional self-talk and odd Germanic and Norse naming senses, he is a man who really cares about his friends. Horrible lack of foresight though, as he jumps headfirst into messing around with time machines. The man spoke so much of secret organizations and being paranoid of people being after him, there's a part of me that wondered if he just real booted them into existence. He makes up for it though by dropping his act whenever things all go to shit. In fact, I found his Chunibyo acts interesting both as a nervous reactive mechanism and for a defined clear reason later on in the story. I actually bet that a lot of people ended up missing his wacky self in the latter half of the story, just like I did. Because Okabe goes through some shit in here. He suffers through every single consequence as a result of his grave mistake, and he is forced to make tough decisions in order to fix it. It feels very real and realistic in how every shocking event and revelation makes him lash out in anger, frustration, guilt, and regret. This visual novel sure as hell details the agony he feels inside. It's very painful. It's absolutely great. It ain't a sci-ADV title unless the main character goes through the absolute worst time of his life. Truly peak science adventure storytelling. Major props to Mamoru Miyano for his vocal performance as Okabe. Not only can he 100% clear Okabe's unique brand of his pompous self, but he can also stress Okabe's emotional breakdowns too. Everything in that final chapter is so good. Steins Gate is a non-stop ride once the shit hits the fan. Of course, once it gets there. I'm holding up the sign that says I swear the slice of life section is important to the plot, but here it's less slice of life and more I need you to lock in because I need to explain curved black hole theory and attractor fields. Like with all sci-ADV works, Steins Gate tackles its sci-fi elements through real-world science and actual known conspiracy theories and concepts. We're talking multiverse theories, parallel universes, theoretical methods of time travel, CERN, to even John time travel himself. I like how accurate its sources are, while also being easy to understand too. Steins Gate actually takes its time in establishing the rules of time travel and how it actually works. It's complex but well-defined, told in a way that's both engaging and actually somewhat plausible. I don't need to take college physics, I just need to read Steins Gate apparently. The best part is that I'm more curious / invested into these sci-fi concepts because there are actual stakes in here and the characters I care about are involved. Understanding exactly how to get Okabe out of the mess he's created just adds to the immersion, making me excited when he does find that solution and absolutely horrified when the worst possible situation happens. Makes me care a lot more about, say, how the butterfly effect works compared to an average physics lecture. That said, you could just have Asami Imai do it and I would be perfectly fine. Again, this makes up a fair amount at the beginning of Steins Gate, but it also mixes in the cast and their odd traits. We have Mayuri, Okabe's naive and ditzy childhood friend, Kurisu, the genius American scientist and Okabe's reluctant assistant, and Daru, our dependable hacker best bro. The main four here take up the most screen time, mostly through banter. Steins Gate downtime has them show off a fair amount of familiar anime tropes and otaku nerdy eccentricities in here. There's certain scenes that don't age well nowadays, but it is based in the otaku-heavy district of Akihabara, Tokyo in 2010. Still gonna scold Okabe for some of his rather forceful actions to the rest of the supporting characters though. There's Lukaku, the shy, reserved shrine maiden, who's notably a guy, Ferris, the waitress/owner of a popular moe cat-made cafe, Suzuha, the friendly part-time worker ex-eager bicyclist, and Moeha, the quiet, stoic text typer extraordinaire. I do think that most of the cast serves as supporting characters and they are important in actively moving the plot/Okabe forward. However, I wish they had more depth to them in this story. The slight exceptions being Mayuri and Kurisu, both of them being involved in my unpopular opinion I'll talk about at the end. Then again, Steins Gate is more time travel fantasy sci-fi, so it's more lenient due to being more plot driven in my book. There's even got a bit of mystery elements in here too that require your focus more. Figuring out exactly how Okabe's dinky time travel microwave and text messages work is its own mystery. I had a feeling when I was reading that the more situationally aware reader will likely be one step ahead of Okabe and can connect the dots earlier. And yet, I fully believe that they'll still be shocked by the plot twist they won't see coming. I'm a fan of how the story plays with those expectations. What's also really neat is that solving the core conflict is linked to character development to the other characters, which then only makes Okabe's job even harder when he has to make that tough decision. Again, I've more or less understood that sci-ADV titles in general are more plot-driven than character-driven, so this is more of a personal preference really. Say, in comparison to something like Chaos Head and Chaos Child, where it deals in the psychological horror realm, which I prefer to get a more deep dive into the character's headspace. Speaking of that, Steins Gate can also nail horror too, in the most unsuspecting of ways. Let me tell you, there is nothing more scarier than receiving a mysterious phone call with an attachment linked inside. I still have PTSD from Chaos Head. Steins Gate's horror all comes from a sudden escalation when something is very wrong, but you largely forget about it until it's too late. Being in Okabe's POV, those shock horrors worked for me especially, but Okabe has it way worse. Steins Gate does not tone down the psychological scarring from what time travel does to this man. From intense paranoia from being hunted down to the sheer hopelessness of the inevitability of fate, to having a full mental breakdown in Suzuha's ending, to the point where I thought I was reading Tsukihime for a split second. It's outright dreadful. It's great. Speaking of the routes, I found it amusing that I ended up getting automatically railroaded into Suzuha's route because I did not know you were supposed to actually send text messages and call manually during these parts. That little indicator I got on my second playthrough definitely helped that go around. I say that I failed to progress a story, but it's really easy to transfer into the other side routes. The only real time where I needed to break out the guide was for that true ending. It is damn near impossible to get that true ending on the first run through. You need to trigger certain flags by responding to certain text messages in specific ways. Another heavily recommended piece of content for reading Steins Gate is the Committee of Zero fan patch that increases the quality of life experience. It's got typography and UI improvements, subtitled videos, and important bug fixes. Now, if they just added a skip to next important text message, that would be super duper helpful. I can't miss a text message from best girl Kurisu after all. She is the one helping Okabe's desperate ass. I do find it increasingly funny of the sequence of the self-proclaimed mad scientist pulling Kyoma, monologuing about taking on the burden of the world, and then immediately defaulting to running to Kurisu for help. Like, male protagonists in these games be like, "Save me, sci-ADV woman, save me!" Only in this installment, it's about one fumbling fake scientist finding his own Oppenheimer moment. To think those real-life scientific concepts being fully explained helped the storytelling and foreshadowed future events. Great synergy, really. Every decision Okabe makes in here involving time travel ends up with Okabe reversing his decision with tension and regret, acknowledging that he probably shouldn't have done this. He was warned by someone smarter than him, but his foolishness made him go ahead and do it anyway. This leads me to my biggest take about Steins Gate I said at the beginning, because I actually prefer Kurisu's ending over the true ending. Now, I do get the warm and feel-good vibes from the true ending. It's a wonderful conclusion. But there's a part of me that dislikes the true ending because it diminishes the meaningful impact of and endings. Both endings are intended to be bittersweet victories. Yes, he's able to accomplish his goal, but they came with the most severe consequence. After all, it's Okabe's rash eagerness that created this entire problem to begin with. Sure, I guess he's learned from his fun roller coaster adventure, and I admit it's cruel for me to say this after everything he's been through, but this story has emphasized that you really shouldn't around and find out, or at least heavily consider the impact. Suzuha, Ferris, and Lukaku's endings are equally the same in how Okabe deliberately chooses a specific result to happen, but ends up paying a fair price for it. These endings are the ultimate end result of actions have consequences, and Okabe must come to terms with the outcome, the aftermath, and his feelings about it. The true ending is fine, I just prefer Causality's meltdown way more. Let me know what you think in the comments below. I am curious on what you all think, whether about the endings or about your experience with Steins Gate as a whole. Because really, at the end of the day, Steins Gate is just a really good visual novel story. I would like to thank everyone on Patreon for supporting me in covering visual novel content. You guys are fantastic, and if you would like to be a part of that effort in supporting visual novel content, please consider subscribing. Now, if you're interested in another emotionally moving visual novel, you might want to check out this video over here, or this one for more of a general recommendation. And finally, of course, Christina's best girl, no doubt about it.